Here's how to get the absolute best bang for your buck for the shoulders elevated hip lift. Now I know there's some controversy surrounding whether or not it's a functional movement. I'm of the opinion that if you're not training your glutes to fully extend your hips under load, you're leaving gains on the table. This goes by, there are a ton of variations. You can do hip lifts from the floor, shoulders elevated, B stance, single leg, knees banded. I'm gonna go over the shoulders elevated version because I feel like this is the most commonly used and also the most commonly butchered. So in order to get this right, first and foremost, you wanna make sure that you've got the correct height, box or bench, something to elevate your shoulders on. I've got a 12-inch box here with a 2-inch pad. I find that 14, 15, 16 inches tends to be a good height for most populations, most people, shapes, sizes, weights. I find that a standard bench is maybe a little too high. When I'm getting into heavier weights, if I have to push with my arms in order to get myself up, that just makes things funny. I don't want to have to use my upper body to get into position. I just want to be able to sit down, place myself in the correct position, and go. Next would be to make sure that the box or bench is secured. So always, always, always place it up against a wall if you can. Use something to make sure it doesn't fall backwards. If your platform were to fall backwards while you're doing a heavier lift, that could be catastrophic. So make sure that there's something behind you to keep that from happening. When it comes to setting up, you want to make sure that the edge of the pad or whatever it is you're using to elevate your shoulders is just underneath your shoulder blades. Common mistake, I see people line up way too high, they're like almost close to their lower back, which is no good, or way too low, too close to the neck. So just make sure you're feeling around, you find where your shoulder blades naturally sit, and then the edge goes just underneath that. Make sure that the pad is centered on the bar. That's another thing that I see people do is they're not paying attention. The pad is off center even just by an inch, and that can throw the whole lift off. So just make sure that you're looking at the markings on the bar, and you make sure everything is centered here before you get set up. When you place the pad on your hips, you want to make sure that it's just below the top ridge of your hips and it sits right across your pelvis. You don't want it on your stomach or on your legs. From there, you get into a little bit more personal preference as far as where your feet go. Some people like their feet wider and pointing out. Some people like their feet closer and their hips more narrow. I tend to prefer shoulder width. You'll have to play around, see where your feet have to be to hit your glutes the best or in the way that you're looking for. You also want to make sure that your feet aren't too far away or too close. You want your feet to be in a position that place your shins perpendicular to the ground when you're in the top position. I say that because if your feet are too far away, then the movement becomes hamstring dominant. If your feet are too close, then you'll feel it more in your quads, and we want to hammer the glutes. So you'll have to play around with this. It depends on body size and shape, but you want to make sure that your shins are perpendicular to the ground when you're in the top position. As far as the action goes, you want to make sure your chin is down, your chest stays down, and then we're pivoting around your sternum or the bottom of your sternum. You're not moving your whole body backwards up over the edge of the bench. So forward gaze, chin down, chest down, hands on the bar. I'm driving through the heels and fully extending my hips. When I'm here in the top position, I want to make sure I'm trying to tuck my tailbone up toward the ceiling. Common mistakes here, and the reason I think some people are either afraid to program it or afraid to do it is people sometimes when they get here, they want to arch their lower back, and that's kind of where that hinging over the edge of the pad comes from. If you keep your eyes forward, your chin down, and the bottom of your sternum down, and you pivot around the bottom of your sternum, I think you avoid a lot of those problems. Hopefully this helps somebody. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments or shoot me a DM.